Dostie here with another irreverent Dostie's View. I was gonna talk about boots. In fact, I just got a pair of used F1s, and this is gonna be my boot project for the fall. It's gonna be a lot more complicated than what I thought it was. I thought I was just gonna put a Michael Bolton duck butt on here and just roll, but I mean, if I'm gonna have to work on this thing, I have to admit, I think this is maybe version 1. I'm not super impressed with this walk mode mechanism. I mean, it's great that once you open it up, the whole thing, it loosens the whole cuff, but I don't like how hard it is to put this in, and I don't like the position of this instep buckle. So I think it's going to be, I'm going to have to make more mods than I originally thought, but that's okay, all right? That wasn't what I really wanted to talk about today, because I need to backtrack. I spoke with Josh Madsen on the most recent podcast, number 94, and I let out that it looks like Crispi is no longer going to be making their 75 millimeter plastic Telemark boots, the XR and XP. Now, turns out that is not officially true. I got information from someone who I thought was a reliable source, and maybe he just jumped the gun. Like, I don't know this, okay? Because I did finally get a hold of the folks at Crispi in Italy, and they're like, nope, we're still making them. Okay, so that's good news. Part of the reason I kind of assumed it was true is because retailers have been reporting that interest in 75 millimeter equipment, at least from a sales perspective, ongoing equipment sales, is definitely the minority player now in the Telemark world. NTN is absolutely dominant, and that's because a couple things. I think number one, most people who ski, whether they telly or lock their heel, it doesn't matter, free or locked heel, most people ski inbounds at a resort, okay? So, given that, NTN unquestionably has superior downhill performance for Telemark because of the way the boot and the binding connect together. It's a much tighter connection, so you get better edging, and that's really important in downhill mode, okay? So one would think that if the majority of the experience that people are looking for is a downhill oriented experience, then they would naturally gravitate to NTN. And with the addition, if you will, of low-tech 2-pin bindings for NTN Telemark boots, that also improves the efficiency of the uphill side of the equation. But as I've said over and over, and I'll repeat again, one of the things that NTN has not mimicked as precisely as 75 millimeter is that smooth flex of the boot. In fact, that's part of why I'm interested in this boot, okay? Because it's old enough that I'm confident that the flex of the boot overall is smooth like a 75 millimeter boot. The introduction of the duck butt introduces a little bit of a discontinuity in the thickness of the sole, and so it doesn't always flex as smooth as, say, a T2 or a T1, or in the case of Crispi, an XR or an XP, or in the case of Scott, a Synergy. Now, NTN has done a really good job as bindings have developed in improving that connection and improving that flex sensation, but still, nothing flexes quite like an old 75 millimeter plastic Telemark boot. So I can see why some people have refused to upgrade. And you know what? And kudos to those of you who have not and who proclaim that you will not, because you know what? I think we're all a little annoyed with a lot of these forced upgrades in our lives that are not upgrades. They're just forces to a change in how things are done, and we're kind of forced reluctantly to adopt them. And thankfully, telemark skiing is not something that you have to do, and you can choose to do it any way you want to do it. And so personally, even I'm relieved that Crispi is not officially ceasing production of the XR and the XP. I mean, it's easy to see where maybe you might think that's happening, okay? Because equipment sales are like 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, NTN to 75 millimeter. And one can see that eventually there will come a point when your manufacturers will not make 75 millimeter based equipment, because when they do a production run, there has to be a minimum order quantity to make it profitable. And if you can't justify running the presses, the parts, the molds, whatever it is, if you can't order the minimum quantities to make it worth producing the next batch, that's when it stops. And so eventually, yeah, we may come to a point where you can't get 75 millimeter equipment. But for right now, the demise of the duckbill has been overstated, and I don't know where it is. It's in the future, and I'm really glad that it's not imminent right now, and I'm really glad that you can decide when you want to change. If you want to change, it's completely up to you, at least for now, okay? And there's plenty of great options. And the reality is, unless you're trying to, reset boundaries, personal boundaries, there's no need to go to NTN. 75 millimeter duck-billed equipment is really high performing. Can you get more performance out of NTN? Potentially, depending upon what performance it is that you're looking for. But on the other hand, if you're just looking for that freeheel experience and you want that swooping, smooth, sensual telemark sensation, you can't beat duckbill boots. Just can't beat them. Not yet. Not yet. So anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Sorry for the false alarm. In the meantime, let's all get down on our knees and spread telemark.